Antony is not good enough for Manchester United. His decision making is horrific. It constantly leads to the attack breaking down. On that right side, you've got Varane, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Antony. And watching United trying to progress the ball down the right side is an excruciating watch. Whilst I do like Varane, I just don't think he's a ball-playing centre-back that Ten Hag needs. And whilst I do think he definitely has a role to play in Ten Hag's system, I don't think you can play him alongside Wan-Bissaka. You need someone like Dalot, but preferably someone like Benjamin Pavard. And whilst I do think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a very good fullback, particularly from a defensive point of view, and I do think he could play a role during certain games for Ten Hag, he can't be the starting right back. He's just not good enough in tight positions, in tight spaces, in the defensive third and the middle third. And just as there is with Varane and Antony, there just seems to be a kind of awkwardness with all three when they receive the ball. And compared to the left side of Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw and what would usually be Marcus Rashford, the technical ability on the right side is pretty poor. But before I go any further, remember to subscribe to the channel and check out my Patreon podcast, which will be linked below. But also, if you want cheap, good quality football jerseys for the new season or retro jerseys from the past 40 years, then check out jerseyfifa.com. A link will be in my Instagram bio, and if you use coupon code Atlantis, you should get a discount as well. I'll leave my Instagram at the top of the description and comment section, and a link will be in my Instagram bio. You may like Wan-Bissaka and Varane as players, but for Ten Hag's system they just don't fit, they don't work at all. Ideally in this transfer window, United should have tried to move on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, got a decent fee for him, and brought in a centre-back to start ahead of Varane as well. Because even though a lot of people prefer Aaron Wan-Bissaka to Dalot, you can't prefer him in this system. He just doesn't fit as well as Dalot does. If you want Ten Hag to be able to play the way he wants to play, you can't have players who are contradictory to the actual system. And United's ball progression down the right side is a major issue, and so I don't even think it's a system problem at this point. I think it's a personnel problem. Wan-Bissaka cannot be a starter for United, Antony cannot be a starter, and when I say Antony cannot be a starter, I don't think he can even come off the bench. I really don't see what the difference is between Antony and Pellistri apart from the price tag, and when Pellistri came on in this game, I actually thought he played better than Antony did. And whereas I do think Varane and Wan-Bissaka are top level players who just don't suit the system and what their role requires, I just don't think Antony's good enough, period. I think if you put him into another Premier League side, in a system that you would say maybe suits him a bit better, I still don't think he gets anywhere near the level that United need. And it's getting to the point where it's kind of like the sunk cost fallacy. Because United have invested so much with that £80 million price tag, it seems like a lot of the United fan base, maybe Ten Hag and the board as well, are watching Antony with rose-tinted glasses, trying ever so hard to try and see the potential in Antony, but I just don't see it. I think Mason Mount will pick up a lot of criticism, however he shouldn't be the first player that people go to. I think he's come in to be a system player, and the system really isn't built at all. Mason Mount was never going to be the Bruno Fernandes type of player who's going to come into the system and even if the side ain't playing well, be able to grab the team by the scruff of the neck and create something out of nothing. Mount is a player similar to Wijnaldum in my opinion. He comes in and should really be the final puzzle piece in the midfield. However, it seems like Ten Hag's just built the midfield in kind of reverse. I think he should probably have waited. I can understand why he went for Mason Mount earlier on in the summer, but knowing the budget restraints, surely United should have prioritised a midfielder who can play alongside Casemiro and Fernandes, but also someone who can actually play in a double pivot. With Mason Mount, he can really only play in that 3-8 position. You can't really have him in a double pivot alongside Casemiro, and that's why Ten Hag was looking at Amrabat. However, at this point in the transfer window, without Amrabat being signed, you can really see the weakness in United's midfield. But I don't think that's even United's biggest problem. I think the right flank is a huge issue, and it's completely draining all of United's attacks. Even against Wolves, whilst I did think United in the first half played pretty bad, not really controlling the game as you would expect, there was a number of opportunities where they were able to transition the attack quickly, but when the ball goes into Antony, his decision making is so bad that it just breaks down the whole attack. Now, I do have sympathy for Garnacho on the other side. He was definitely guilty of this against Wolves. I thought he was better in this game, but he's a young player. He really shouldn't be the starter. He's the type of player that you want to come on around the 65th, 70th minute and really run at his fullback, but starting the game really doesn't seem to suit his style of play at the moment, and he does need to mature in his game, but he's still only young. And so whilst I do think Garnacho does deserve some criticism, looking at the context, I think Antony has to take a lot more of it. But also Rashford can't play as a centre forward, he just doesn't have the hold up play. There was multiple times in the Wolves game where he failed to link play effectively, and this happened again against Tottenham, and United's attack just looks completely disjointed. It's basically reliant on Bruno Fernandes producing a piece of magic, as he did with that Rabona cross to Rashford in the first half. And after this performance and the Wolves game, I am rethinking a few of the videos I made just a few weeks ago, predicting United finish second. I just can't see that happening right now. Also grading the transfer window. At the time I said it could potentially be an A, when it looked like we would potentially sign Amrabat and probably bring in someone like Pavard. However, those deals seem to have stalled. And at the moment, this United squad has issues pretty much all over the pitch. The central midfield is an issue, you need a backup for Casemiro, but also someone who can play either as a 3-8, but also drop alongside Casemiro and provide a bit more defensive stability in there. The right side just has a complete lack of quality with Wan-Bissaka and Antony, and until Højlund's fit, United just have no focal piece of their attack. Against Tottenham, when United were able to get the ball into some dangerous crossing positions, every time either Mount or Fernandes looked up, there was no one in a central position on the shoulder of the last defender between the goalkeeper and the defensive line. Rashford seemed to be pulling over to the left side, and Garnacho just isn't a physical presence at all in the box. And watching United as we got into Tottenham's defensive third, it seemed like we were playing with 10 men. Now Martial did come off the bench, but he looked lethargic as ever, but what is the point in him even playing? If he's never around when United actually need him. I guarantee when Højlund does start for United, and if he does get a couple of goals, Martial will magically become fit again and be available for selection. But if Højlund was to get injured, Martial may be around for a game or two, but he's likely then going to pick up another injury. So I really don't even see the point in keeping him. He's just never fit enough to actually play. I would have sold him in the summer. I can't understand why United didn't. Maybe they wanted to keep him around because they didn't have another striking option after Højlund. But what is the point in having Martial if he's not even going to play? He's not played the first 2 games of the season. We've had to play Rashford as a centre forward, which just doesn't work at all. You've got Antony on the right, who just seems to have a complete inability to ever make the right decision. The midfield is being completely exposed by the system around it. Mount is obviously going to come under a lot of criticism, but I really don't think it's his fault. I think it's the system around him. Bruno Fernandes is basically having to run it all himself. Casemiro in the first 2 games of the season has looked very sluggish. Maybe it's because of the system and how much space he's having to cover, but even still he's making a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes, and so he has to be held accountable for that. Luke Shaw is another who hasn't started the season well. He's looking very slow in possession. He was allowing Kulusevski to run off of him far too many times, getting his positioning completely wrong because he's not aware of where Kulusevski is, and Kulusevski was just breaking in behind him multiple times throughout that first half. And if it wasn't for Lisandro Martinez's 1v1 defending ability around the box, United would have been in real trouble because Kulusevski was getting into some good positions when he was running offshore. But at the moment, United are in a complete shambles. I haven't even come on to the problems with the system. The personnel on its own is problematic. I don't think Antony's good enough to start. Wan-Bissaka and Varane can't start alongside each other. I definitely think both of them have a place in Ten Hag's squad, but playing them together is just a recipe for disaster. I am going to rewatch the game and do a tactical analysis, so keep an eye out for that. That will be a bit more concise, a bit more in depth. But this was just my match reaction. If you want to hear the full episode where I also discuss other games over the weekend, that should be out tomorrow, so you can sign up to the Patreon. I've also got a Patreon podcast coming out with The Different Knock, which is an Arsenal analysis YouTube channel. And in that episode, we basically talk about a lot of the problems that United faced in this game, so keep an eye out for that, and also check the description for more of my videos as well.